Hello, wonderful people. I'm Sam, and welcome to the 5th episode of Hvalsø Prehistoric Wildlife Park. I'm so excited to continue working on this series and to think I've already gotten this far and to think I've gotten all this support from you people who like to come and watch me do my thing. As of recording, I have 34 subscribers, which in the grand scheme of YouTube surely isn't a lot, but to me it's the whole world. It's more than I ever expected when I started uploading videos. So thank you so much. As I just showed you, I've updated the map as I usually do. And today we are going to continue working on the Cretaceous section. So right past the little lookout and the shop and the plaza. As you can see, I've also updated the signs here to point accurately, including a new one that points towards the exit. Originally, I had intended to start on like a big carnivore habitat. I felt it was time to get one of those big meat-eating theropods in here, because they're such iconic dinosaurs and such an iconic part of the Cretaceous especially. I'm not gonna put in T-Rex yet. I think I'm going to save that one for a special spot somewhere more central in the park, because that is, it is the Tyrant Lizard King. It should be sort of a centerpiece. But I was going to do a big carnivore habitat, and then I got inspired again by Elynix's newest video and also by some discussions I had in the Prehistoric Kingdom Discord here the other day. So instead I'm going to do something completely different and go for a very small and unassuming Cretaceous herbivore, the Psittacosaurus, our mascot, Taco. So I'm going to do a funky little exhibit for them right here on the other side of the plaza. Maybe I'll change it up and what you'll see in the rest of the video ends up being something completely different, because I don't know if my idea is actually going to work, but we'll see about that. Let's get to building. Okay, so firstly, I'm happy to report that you will see some Psittacosaurus at the end of the video, because my idea did work. The reason I was worried was that I'm trying to do something that the game was absolutely not designed to accommodate, which is a walk-through habitat. Which is why you see me fiddling with these stairs here. As you can see, I'm doing something I otherwise never do, which is I'm actually putting in some animals already at the start. I'll sell these off again and add the real ones at the end of the video. But I had to test if I could make a staircase that was steep enough that the animals couldn't cross, but not so much that the guests couldn't cross either. And I'm happy to report I could. Just for posterity, I also tried to do a different thing, like you see there with bars, but I end up going with the stairs. It was just a lot easier to make work with me. And so once I know the angle I have to have the stairs at, I can actually go and, design the stairs as I actually want them to look. A lot of this habitat is inspired by the goat petting zoo in Copenhagen Zoo. I don't imagine this habitat as actually being a petting zoo, like that seems irresponsible to do with dinosaurs or any sort of wild animals. It's one thing with goats, they're domesticated, have been for thousands of years. Not the same with a Psittacosaur, which is basically a large pig with a parrot's head and the bite force of a large shepherd dog, so doesn't seem like a good idea. But sort of a walk-through habitat where if you keep to the paths and don't try to touch the animals, I figure that would probably be fine. And the best reference for sort of the look of that sort of enclosure was that goat habitat in Copenhagen Zoo, so that was my main inspiration for the style of the stairs and the fences anyway. The rest of the habitat are much more so freestyling, because I didn't feel like a habitat for a goat would necessarily fit very well for a Psittacosaur more generally. So I'm just having fun with it. Here you can see I'm putting in some paths, just in like a random pattern that I thought looked nice for the guests to walk around the enclosure. And then I put in some fencing around the border, just as I usually do, very temporarily. Just it helps that I can see the outline of the habitat as I'm building, and it also makes it easier to select and sort of edit and delete parts of the fence as I go. And then I get started on the stable, as you can see. Very sort of a quaint building compared to the giant stable I built last time, which actually was a very nice change of pace. So just a super simple, both in terms of the outside and the interior. It took me a little bit to figure out exactly how I wanted the separation between the staff and the animal side of the stable to look like, but I ended up with going with something very simple with just this low fence. Again, I wanted to use modular pieces so I could prefab the stable, but I still sort of tried to style it after how the 1 meter basic chain link fence in the game looks. So it's still the same style, so it matches with the little wooden gate. Copy and advanced edit, my beloved. Where would I be without it? I use it so much. And I use it so much in this build in particular. Yeah. Yeah, as you can see, just editing the stable building a little bit more, and then I'm going back to the outside now that I have a better idea of the layout. So I get started on some terrain, not a lot. This is a fairly flat habitat and it wouldn't really make sense any other way since guests are supposed to be able to traverse it. But I did want a little bit of sort of hilly height elevation in between the paths. And then you can see terrain painting. I keep coming back to the grassland mud. I just think it has such a nice color. And in this habitat it's basically just that plus the scrubland clay and a bit of the scrubland grass. And now I'm onto fencing. Again, as I said before, this is styled after the fence around the goat pen in Copenhagen Zoo, very roughly, so it's just like a very simple plank fence. I'm using that wall piece to make sure my fence piece is 4 meters long, because that means I can toggle on a set move distance and then move it in 4 meter increments, and I know it'll match up, which made it a lot quicker to sort of surround the whole habitat with it. Especially this first part. I'm making this little pen, as you can see, in front of the stable with access for the keepers. And now, as you can also see me doing here, with these little openings that are low enough that the Psittacosaurus can walk through them, but the guests cannot. This is also something you most often see with walkthrough habitats, so that there's a part of the habitat that the animals can go to if they want to get away from the guests, which I think is very reasonable. Yeah. Now I'm on to sort of having a little bit better idea of what the stable is actually going to look like. The stable itself is mainly inspired by like old Danish country houses, farmhouses. There was a specific one from southern Jutland I found online that looked really cool, so that's where I'm getting the colors from, with like the dark green wooden beams on the brick. I unfortunately end up changing out the red brick to the regular bricks in the game. The colors aren't quite as nice, I think, as when you do it custom, but the regular brick texture is just a lot more worn than the painted brick, and that was the trade-off I was willing to do. Then more of the same procedure as every year, James. I'm taking those fences I made for the little pen and copying them around the rest of the enclosure, which was actually a surprisingly painless process, despite me now being sort of off that square grid shape that the little pen was. It really helped that I knew exactly how long they were, so it was pretty easy to copy them around and just adjust them ever so slightly every time there was a little bit of an angle. So yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And then I put in some extra gates so the keepers have more than one point of entry. And after that, I can remove the temporary fences and then get started on the backstage. So yeah, you see all the usual props, like I always do. Just the things that make a backstage look like an actual backstage that's in use, more or less. Oh yeah, I put in a little drain. I figured that made sense as well. Yeah, boxes, pallets, that little thing there, the rack, and then Kaido's wonderful backstage props. Where would I be without them? I don't think I'll ever make a backstage without them since I've started using them. It just they add so much. Yeah. And I do that thing I did all the way back in episode 1 with the dirty dishes in the sink. As you can see, there's with the full prefab there's so many different things, boxes and buckets and so on and so forth. I'm using like a fraction of them so far because I'm only really building for herbivores, but yeah, there's a thing for pretty much every occasion. Yep, and then some bedding and some nests for the animals. And that's pretty much the interior of the stable done. Here on the exterior, I'm putting in a little water bowl for them. yeah, and some feeding troughs that made most sense to have there in the pen, I felt. And then it's onto a ceiling and some lights, like I usually do. Super simple. Just put the light on the middle of each ceiling piece and then copy the whole thing around. And then turn it to glass, because I need a little bit more editing. Again, I'm putting heat lamps over each of the nests, as I usually do. That, yeah, I don't know. It just adds that little touch of like, yeah, this makes sense. Adjust the ceiling a little, so slightly, so it's not poking out in any places. And then the roof. I was a little bit in doubt. On the one hand, I wanted to go for like that old farmhouse vibe and give it like a thatch, so straw roof. On the other hand, I wanted something a little more modern that would probably be more likely to have in a well-funded modern zoo. I ended up going with a mix here, which you can see like the thatch on the side, and then some overhead windows here in the middle, so you get some more natural light into the stable. Also because there aren't really any windows in this stable, which I'm not sure if I might change later down the line, but I'm trying sort of with all my stable buildings, like in a backstage stable like this, I try not to have any windows where the guests can look in, because that's like a backstage area. And it was another thing where I was deliberately making like a viewing gallery where you can look into the animal sleeping area, but that's not what I'm going for here. So I felt it was nice to have some overhead light coming in. And then more trim work. That's just such a big part of any building to make it more detailed and more realistic. I always spend more time on the trim than pretty much any other part of the building. That's just how it is. And then you see here, yeah, I painted a little bit over the path to make it blend a little bit more into the terrain, since I want that very natural dirt path look. And then some rock work. Nothing too big and fancy here, just some clumps of rocks on those little hills in between the paths. Again, this is inspired by that goat habitat in Copenhagen. And then, as I usually do, 1 billion trillion small rock clusters spread around the habitat, and 3, 2, 1, sunken into the ground, yes. And then I'm making my little foliage palettes of the different types of foliage I want in and around the habitat. Fairly simple this time around. The Psittacosaurus is only like 2 biomes, so I'm choosing from those 2 and finding a good mix. I think I like, yeah, a few trees and some underbrush. First I do this sort of green border around the habitat, between the habitat and the guest path. That I edited a lot of this out, but it took me a while to get it to look just right and fit and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think it ends up looking very nice. And then this sort of drier, more deserty scrub within the habitat itself. Just spread around a little. And some trees, just a few. I really like the seasonal ginkgos there, the yellow ones. That's such a vibrant color. I really wanted to use more of them. Yeah. And then a little bit of enrichment. Just to finish it off, make them happy. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. And some signs for the entry. This is of course going to be the taco trail. There we are. And then on to some guest facilities. I'm not really making a viewing gallery this time around, because that didn't really seem necessary when you have a walk-in habitat. That's the way you view the animals. But I did want to make some more staff facilities, so I'm putting in my first like actual restaurant. This one is inspired, or heavily inspired in fact, by the Safari Cafe in Odense Zoo, because it just had like a very vibrant, very sort of kid-friendly and colorful look to it, that I thought would fit very well for this sort of arguably like a very much a kids area of the park, you know. So yeah, that means I wanted this sort of raised portion in front, and then since I had already raised it off the ground, I figured I could hide or put in some toilets underneath that, so the understory was also in use. Yeah, you can see I also put in a staff access in the back there. And yeah, again, very vibrant colors. If you thought I used a lot of time on trim work on the stable, you have no idea with this thing, man. There was just I cut so much out of me fiddling to make all these different planks and beams and so on just look exactly right and fit together, especially across the stairs here. That that took me a while, but I'm quite satisfied with the finished look, even if it took me hours and hours to get it right. Especially down the staircases here at the angles. Yeah. As you can see, I've cut most of that out. You're just seeing a glimpse of me starting and then finishing it. But as always, Nigel was very helpful in making sure the fences were at an okay height. Yeah. And I put that little storage facility into the back, because now we're actually moving far enough into the zoo that the main loading bay isn't that close by anymore. Yeah, this was sort of a split-second decision. It looks like there are some windows vaguely like this in that safari kiosk in the picture I found online. And I just I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll do that. Yeah. I've spared you me putting in lamps and stuff, but you can just see me finishing the ceiling there, and then the roofs. Very simple, very cozy, sort of tropical vibes. And there, of course, the restaurant needs a name. And this is of course going to be Tacos. Yeah, everything is taco themed in this part of the park. That just, yeah. That was the only thing that made sense to me. Some finishing touches, and then it's time to put in the animals. Alright, so here we are back in the hatchery. Let's get ourselves some Psittacosaurus. The Psittacosaurus I'm gonna go with is the Psittacosaurus mongoliensis. There are two other Psittacosaurus species in the game, but I think mongoliensis is the prettiest, so that's the one I'm going with. I really like the skin patterns with the red and the black and the white. Here we are in the stable. Let's add them in. And there they are, the little critters. Already out and about to explore their new habitat. Well, most of them. One of them is falling behind a little. See how they like it? They certainly seem curious. Already playing. Oh, it's good. It's adorable. And for once it seems I've made a habitat without any mistakes and breakouts, so that's good. To be fair, it's a very simple habitat design, but still. I wonder when I'll start seeing guests actually go in here. Oh, and it's happening! We have our first walk-in guest. Walking around. Other little baby dinosaurs are running around as well. Oh, look at the little guys. Hello. Oh. Hello, little guy. This is great. I'm just happy. I can't imagine too many guests are gonna be walking in here, because I haven't really placed too many things that are of interest, you know. But yeah, like, there's no shops or viewing binoculars or anything in here, because that wouldn't make sense to me. So probably not too many of them are gonna be walking around in here, but it's really cool that they can. The area here between the restaurant and the plaza, I'm not entirely sure what to do with yet, so as a placeholder I've just put in a bit of foliage. Maybe I'll put another small enclosure here, whether that be another Cretaceous enclosure or a Jurassic one, as we are sort of on the border between the two. Perhaps I might put in a building with some of the new vivariums once they come out, but for now it's just sort of an empty lot. We'll see about it maybe in the next episode, maybe the one after. Oh, and since you asked about it last time, let's check in on the Hadrosaurs and the Styracosaurus. As you can see, they are growing up. I've let the game run for a good while. They're still pretty small compared to what they're gonna get up to. But as you can see, the Lambeosaurs have already gotten some size to them. So have the Parasaurolophus. The Styracosaurus are actually already adolescent, and you can see on the males some of the colors are starting to come in a little bit. The three species don't all grow up equally fast. I think the Styracosaurus reach maturity at about 5 years, and then the Lambeosaurus at 6, and the Parasaurolophus at 7. So the Styracosaurus are going to be grown up first, but there's still a little while to go. They already look super cool. I will just zip into first person mode again here and just give you the usual little tour as dawn breaks here. Yeah, as you can see, we're starting with the backstage this time again. Kaidu's props, they look so good. Yeah, very sort of snug, cozy little stable. Not smaller than my last build, which I actually prefer. Signs, as you can see, will have to be updated to actually reflect the animals in here. I'll do that off camera. The taco challenge this time around isn't really a challenge. It says finally home, and it's sort of like information for the kids to say. It says like, just like if you were a guest anywhere else, you have to be polite to your hosts. Essentially treat the animals well while you're in there. And then of course we have the tacos shop. As you can see, I also placed in a few binoculars here on top. Just so there are some overlooking the enclosure. It didn't really make sense to me to have them down by the fence. The habitat is just not big enough for it. Initially I tried to make the small donation boxes kind of look like hand sanitizer dispensers, because you usually have that with walk enclosures, but they're a bit too big for me to be able to get it to look right, so I just ended up having them as is. Still in the same place by each of the gates. Let's sit down for a delicious taco. And with that, there's not much else to say except thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas for what sort of animals I should put in next, please comment down below. Maybe tell me your opinion on dinosaur walkthrough enclosures. I'm sure there's some people with strong opinions about that out there. And yeah, if you liked the video, please like the video. If you want to see more of what I'm doing, please subscribe. Other than that, take care of yourselves, wonderful people. Until next time.